Hello, this is 13 Action News. I'm Trisha Keene. We're glad you're streaming us right now because our 13 Investigates team has some new investigations we want to highlight. Each week, Chief Investigator Darcy Spears, investigative reporter Joe Bartels, and our 13 Investigates team are out there helping you by uncovering problems that you need to know about. Here are this week's stories.
A woman we'll call April to protect her privacy was once willing to lay down her life for her country. Now she's struggling to put it back together after what she says happened not on the battlefield, but at the hands of a superior.
Like, my first thought was just like shutting myself down and going like, even God wouldn't forgive me for like not fighting hard enough to get him off.
April was serving in the Nevada Air National Guard, assigned to the 152nd Wing outside Reno. In February 2018, she met a master sergeant with more than 2 decades of service.
They're often quite encouraged to find like a senior non-commissioned officer who can be their mentor, who can kind of help them with their career progression.
Lindsay Knapp, executive director of the nonprofit group Combat Sexual Assault, is representing April. And April says this initially felt like a mentoring relationship. It involved team building exercises off base, after regular work hours, and on weekends. Routine, they say, in military life.
He would have like this four-wheeling group,
but in remote areas with few around.
It just turned into the complete opposite of being a mentor and a leader.
April now believes the master sergeant was grooming her.
Like, he was doing little things where he was just being inappropriate, making jokes about sex, making comments about other people and teaching people about women's parts.
April went to her chain of command, reporting she was uncomfortable.
Didn't do anything, they just blamed me and said that I would get written up for fraternization.
Then she says the master sergeant's behavior escalated.
Forcing me to touch him in like inappropriate places and like touching me without my permission. And he took away the knife that he gave me for protection and like whispered, "You won't be needing this," and then just got on top of me, humping me, and just wouldn't stop like touching my private areas. And I was like basically just fighting to get his hands off of me.
She claims she felt helpless to stop these each time they happened.
You are trained to follow the orders of those that outrank you, and those that are superior to you. You are trained to do that without question.
Then in November 2019, April began to fear for her life.
And he was just going off on me, telling me that I had to love him and that his wife settled for him and I couldn't settle for him, that I had to want him and be in love with him.
SARC stands for the military's Sexual Assault Response Coordinator. April reached out, but to no avail. She says the SARC and a senior airman interfered with her attempt to report an assault to police in Sparks.
And that was the last day to get my rape kit, and security forces heard that and took me off, took me away from the police department and told me to go home.
The next day, April says a senior supervisor found out she was trying to involve police.
He basically told me that I wasn't reporting to law enforcement or the SARC, and I had to go meet with him. And when I did, he told me that was consensual.
Unable to believe what was happening, April defied orders and went that day to Reno police. Reno police ended up closing the case, telling 13 Investigates they couldn't find probable cause to file any charges. April says other findings validated her claims. The military issued a protective order against the master sergeant. So did a Washoe County civilian judge. And after a hearing that included testimony from the master sergeant, that judge checked the sexual assault box on the order. When April sought medical attention on her own, an examination at Travis Air Force Base found an injury which is very common after sexual assaults. Knapp says despite all that, the military didn't investigate further.
We have all of this evidence in black and white that shows that the military is not following its own processes and policies.
The Nevada Air National Guard declined an on-camera interview, but they did tell us they immediately separated the master sergeant from the victim, and they requested the Office of Complex Investigations to review April's case, but that office declined, citing the Reno police investigation as the most extensive report into an allegation of sexual assault this office has ever been presented for review. April says she still felt trapped and unable to leave the military.
She could be considered AWOL, right? So you're absolutely right. You cannot just quit, right? You have to endure. You have to put up with the gaslighting. You have to put up with the retaliation. Because if not, they're going to throw you in jail, right? It's not like I work for a corporation and I can just leave.
The Guard tells us they removed the master sergeant from the military with an other than honorable discharge for adultery and fraternization. April's attorney says that's the military's way of glossing over the problem.
This is why service members are experiencing retaliation at the rate that they are, because commanders have found that they can just retaliate and get away with it.
Some lawmakers are trying to address that dynamic with a new law, hopefully removing the decision to investigate sexual assault allegations from the chain of command.
It puts highly technical, difficult work in the hands of those who have the most expertise to know how to complete that mission.
Until that becomes a reality, Knapp says those who serve to defend us from foreign threats will be forced to defend themselves against their own.
So now the victim has got to literally scream out to the media to throw up a flare in hopes that Secretary Austin or President Biden is going to see and act. That is not the way the process is supposed to work. Something might finally be working in April's favor. After 13 Investigates started asking questions, the military decided to allow her to move to a different National Guard unit, approving an expedited transfer which had previously been denied. April's attorney says approving that transfer means commanders must now agree that April has a credible report of sexual assault, and that could raise questions about how her case was handled from the very beginning. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates.
Welcome back, and thanks for watching 13 Investigates. Don't forget that we're online 24/7 on our website, ktnv.com/13investigates. The investigation into what brought down a contractor plane from Nellis Air Force Base into a neighborhood is underway. Right now, we know the pilot, who was the only person on board, was killed. The NTSB has also taken over the investigation.
And we have complete coverage with depth and also context for you tonight. So let's get to 13 Investigates reporter Joe Bartels. He is live near Christie Lane and Lake Mead Boulevard here to start us off. Joe.
Yeah, Todd, Tricia, still hours after this plane went down, a very active scene. Take a live look right now. We are learning much more about the plane and where exactly that aircraft came down.
Military personnel running at the scene, a very rare sight in a northeast Las Vegas neighborhood that's used to seeing military might in the air.
It was low. I've never heard one that's fly that low before.
How low would you say it was flying?
Oh, I'd say about 1,000 feet off the ground.
My dog was freaking out. He was like running around the house, like going crazy by the windows. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he's just like, he just kept running by the windows, by the doors. We let him out and he tried to run down the street and like towards this way. And then my dad, he's like, hey, a plane just crashed down the street.
Video from the scene shows the immediate aftermath. People rushing over to the burning jet that fell from the sky. It happened just seconds from Nellis Air Force Base property. Authorities say the unidentified pilot died.
Yeah, so we're spotters. We go out to Nellis every day, and right now there is a training exercise here. So we were catching all the fighter jets coming in the land, and it happened.
Anthony Milano was in the area watching the air power. He has a still camera with a long lens to capture the planes, but then the attention turned to the ground as fire personnel rushed off the base into the nearby neighborhood to help.
Right after he came down, they immediately had ambulances and fire engines coming out of Nellis Air Force Base.
I spoke with the homeowner of where the plane crashed. He confirmed he was at home at the time and is still too shaken up to talk about it. Video shows there was major fire and structural damage.
This is the first for me. I've seen news reports from this stuff, but I've never had this in person, actually being at the scene of the crash.
No other passengers were on board that military contractor aircraft. The NTSB is one of the agencies handling this investigation. Reporting live, Joe Bartels, 13 Action News.
Welcome back, and thanks for watching 13 Investigates. Don't forget that we're online 24/7 on our website, ktnv.com/13investigates. Bakeries, yum. Bugs, not so much. But the two are co-headlining this week's Dirty Dining, and it is a packed one.
The 13 chief investigator shows us a couple popular local spots, in fact, that racked up some demerits this week.
All Seasons Diner in Chinatown on Spring Mountain and Wind Roads used to be called Four Seasons Diner. Under that name and previous ownership, it was on Dirty Dining twice. Current owner John Chow got a 33 demerit C grade on his May 11th inspection.
They wrote up violations for improper hand washing, for a food handler putting pork on top of a trash can to prepare it.
Because when they come in, we are so busy, so some employees, all the things we already know how to do it, but instantly they just didn't beware, so that's why how the happens.
The cook didn't wash his hands after handling raw pork. He also grabbed green onions and placed them into a bowl of ready-to-eat soup with his bare hands. Of cut cabbage and eggs were in the temperature danger zone. Meat and buns in the fridge and freezer were uncovered and subject to contamination, and a food handler picked up a container of sterno off the floor and put it directly on the food prep table.
It's not an excuse because when the busy time and then also get lovely food and then people walking and so many.
Chow said in their haste to get food out to customers, they didn't clean along the way, which is why inspectors found a buildup of old food in refrigeration units and saw a cook wipe down a knife and cutting board with a dry, stained, and soiled rag. Chow says short staffing is part of the problem.
We have limited employees here, so that's why.
All Seasons Diner was re-inspected May 17th and got a 3 demerit A grade. Just down the road and also in Chinatown, repeat offender Yunnan Garden on Shift Drive near Valley View Boulevard has a sign on the door that says no mask, no service, no enter. But roaches can't read. Yunnan Garden was shut down May 12th for a multi-generational cockroach infestation.
And we just came by to talk to whoever's in charge.
Right now the boss is very busy, so nobody can talk to you.
They're busy and they can't talk to us?
Yeah.
Not too busy to come see what was going on.
Is this him right there?
Yeah.
Can you come talk to me real quick?
Owner John Wang says his English isn't very good, but that everything in the restaurant is fine now.
And can you tell me why it got bad?
Because they doing the service and they come out.
They came out after the pest control service. But they said the conditions in the kitchen were kind of welcoming to the roaches with a lot of dirt and old food and grease. That's in the health report.
I don't think so.
You disagree? No. They do have pictures that show dirty conditions.
The health district's pictures show excessive grease under and behind equipment, in a floor drain under the wok stove, and along plumbing fixtures and drain lines. Inspectors saw live roaches on the floor by the cook line and inside a large bin of uncooked rice. There were dead roaches and roach feces along the edges of walls and collecting in corners. Yunnan Garden did have a pest control treatment 5 days prior.
So if it was clean, why would the roaches come?
I think from outside or from the deliver, something like that.
Came in from outside, yeah.
That's why they doing
all around this whole area. They have problems with roaches at other restaurants too.
I guess.
But right next door, we saw staff deep cleaning their kitchen equipment, and that's after getting an A grade on a May 17th inspection, so no roaches there. Yunnan Garden was re-inspected May 14th and got a 3 demerit A grade. Cockroaches also caused closure on May 12th at Granello Bakery on Marden Avenue near Decatur Boulevard and Warm Springs Road. According to its website, Granello provides freshly baked products to every major casino, specialty grocery chains, coffee houses, and the finest eating establishments in the Las Vegas area. Inspectors saw more than 20 multi-generational roaches crawling throughout proofers in the main oven area. A proofer is a dough oven that helps bread rise before baking. There were roaches in the oven door crevice, in cracks, and on walls inside the oven. Cockroach activity was documented on pest control records going back to October 2020. Inspectors also say a bulk bin of oatmeal was contaminated with live weevils crawling throughout the food product. The owner did not respond to multiple calls for comment. Granello was reinspected May 15th and got a 0 demerit A grade. Espiga de Oro Bakery on Lake Mead Boulevard and Civic Center Drive in North Las Vegas was shut down May 11th for both a cockroach and rodent infestation. Inspectors found sticky traps with multiple mice and multi-generational cockroaches caught in the glue. There were rodent droppings on the large mixer, on floors near packaged bread, near racks of clean dishes, and on a utensil container. Dirty conditions and old food made an enticing environment for pests. The Health District's website shows the bakery is still closed and the listed phone number is disconnected. Grimaldi's Pizzeria in Boca Park on Rampart Boulevard and Alta Drive was shut down May 16th for no hot water, the result of a validated complaint. Grimaldi's also got 25 demerits, which would have been a C grade if not for the closure. The inspection says food handlers had not been washing their hands or doing dishes with hot water in the food prep areas for at least 2 days. There was pink mold in the ice machine chute. Food in the pizza prep area was subject to contamination due to lids that don't fully close. The straw in an employee beverage was touching clean pizza pans, and the dumpster area was overflowing with trash. A corporate spokesperson sent a statement to say, "We immediately corrected all identified issues, and upon reinspection, the health department reinstated the restaurant's grade of A, a grade that is consistent with all of our Nevada restaurants." Our Dirty Dining nightcap comes in Summerlin at Distill Tavern Restaurant on Charleston Boulevard and Pavilion Center Drive. Distill was shut down May 11th for the imminent health hazard of no hot water. They were preparing food and washing dishes without hot water and were told by inspectors to immediately cease and desist. A cook told inspectors they were aware of the issue since that morning. They ended up having to throw out a lot of prepared food, including multiple plates for customers that were waiting in the warming window to be served. Distill's director of operations sent a statement citing an unfortunate equipment failure, which was immediately addressed. They had the water heater repaired within hours, were re-inspected, and reopened the same day with an A grade. The full statement is on our website. Also on our website, 2 food trucks taken off the road for imminent health hazards. Vegas Dessert Box and Snowy Paradise Shave Ice were both sidelined for water issues. We have details and statements from the owners on KTNV.com. Darcy Spears, 13 Investigates.
Welcome back, and thanks for watching 13 Investigates. Don't forget that we're online 24/7 on our website, ktnv.com/13investigates. It is the main travel route between Las Vegas and Phoenix, and now traffic officials are calling it a deadly gamble for drivers.
And Scripps reporter Melissa Blasius now digs into what makes this road so dangerous.
The lights and sounds of Las Vegas, just a 5-hour drive from Phoenix up US 93. But too often the trip ends with these lights and these sounds.
I could hear the screaming.
On April 30th, travelers became rescuers, pulling DPS trooper Casey Reinhardt from his burning cruiser.
I was able to grab onto the top half of the door and pulled it open enough to where I got a hold of the trooper.
We were falling all over the place, just trying to drag him and get him away.
Multiple cars had crashed near mile marker 174, miles from the nearest town, a place where cell phones and police radios have no service.
The Good Samaritans had to drive away from the scene to make a phone call to let the DPS dispatchers that they had a trooper that was down and needed help.
Congress firefighters arrived to triage 7 victims. They've handled mass casualties on this highway before.
We start working on the severely injured patients or the ones that we know are going to make it, and that's all we can do.
Literally, you're making life and death decisions.
Pretty much, yes.
Crosses along US 93 show where people have died over the years. Valley UPS driver Arthur Perez, Veronica Wood, who never made it home to Goodyear, and last year, young brothers Jackson and Cameron Clark, both killed on a trip to visit relatives. The ABC 15 investigators focused on this stretch from Wickenburg to Wickiup, 79 miles, including 34 miles of two-lane road, seen here in red. Congress's fire chief says there are too many impatient drivers and risky passing.
I can tell you that most of our wrecks that we go on out there are within a mile of a passing zone.
There were several years of declining fatalities in this area, according to data from DPS and ADOT. Then a sharp increase in 2020. 9 people died. That's despite ADOT's improvement projects, including widening many miles from 2 lanes to a divided 4-lane highway.
When it was 2 lanes, it was more head-on collisions we were seeing. Now it's rollovers. The road's nicer, it's wider, it's straighter. Speeds have increased.
ADOT crash data shows between Wickenburg and Wickiup, there were 181 total crashes in 2015. That grew nearly 40% in 4 years to 248 crashes in 2019.
Every road that we build and maintain is done to federal safety standards. Unfortunately, a lot of people drive it without a lot of regard for their personal safety or the safety of others, and that's why you see these horrific crashes.
Nearly 5 crashes a week. So what are the odds? Roughly 1 crash for every 15,000 cars that pass through. In areas so remote, one spot is literally called nothing.
But if you crash near nothing, help is nowhere nearby. In fact, you have to go about a 30-minute drive down a windy state highway to find a fire truck or an ambulance here in Baghdad.
In a perfect world, we've got ambulances that are within 10 minutes, no matter where you're at. That's not realistic. This is rural Arizona.
Are there literally people on US 93 who die waiting for help?
Yes, there is.
The combination of fatal crashes and long average wait times for an ambulance led consumer website Value Penguin to name US 93 the most dangerous highway in America in 2018. Despite that distinction and increases in crashes and deaths, traffic enforcement, civil and criminal traffic tickets were down significantly in 2020. That's according to an ABC 15 analysis of filings in the rural Yavapai County Court that covers most of this stretch of US 93.
It's not acceptable. We as a state need to provide better customer service. We need to take care of our citizens.
Arizona State Troopers Association President Jeff Hawkins says staffing is so low in Wickenburg that there's usually just 1 trooper on patrol and frequently no troopers after 1 a.m. Hawkins is lobbying the legislature and the governor for more trooper pay to help with recruiting and upgrades to radio dispatch in the area so first responders don't have communication dead spots.
We'll find out when they release their budget whether or not they're concerned about our roadways in Arizona.
Arizona Department of Public Safety officials declined on-camera interviews. In an email, DPS says slowing down drivers on US 93 is a high priority, and there was a targeted speed enforcement detail in March. That was before Trooper Reinhardt was hit.
People lost their lives, and people's lives are changed forever, and it just didn't need to happen.
For now, first responders are urging drivers to help lower the stakes, obey the speed limit, wait for passing lanes, and stop if drowsy. Do not make the drive to Las Vegas a deadly gamble.
Thank you for watching. Join us again next week on your favorite streaming device for all news stories by our 13 investigative team. I'm Trisha Keene with 13 Action News.